Thank you, everybody, for coming on and listening to this podcast. This is the Ultimate Health Model Podcast, where we take a deep dive into uncharted waters on everything health. And I want to thank everybody listening and watching. I know you have a lot of options when it comes to podcasts, and we really appreciate it. Today, I have the honor and pleasure of speaking with Miki Ben-Dor, who is an archaeologist. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
you can say that. I don't dig a lot. I read a lot of papers. I'm
Okay.
more like a historian than an archaeologist.
Okay, well, paleoanthropologist is also so that's your
That's
title.
better. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, great. So, paleoanthropologist, a lovely guy. I interviewed him for my book a couple of years ago, and I learned a lot from him about what our ancestors ate evolutionarily, all these things. And it's and he has a book out called Live Paleo. Was that correct?
Live Paleo style, yeah.
Paleo. And it's very fascinating, talking about different things about what they ate and how they lived, how hunter-gatherers lived, and our pre-ancestors. And it wasn't this struggle that everyone thinks it is. And I thought it was that way too. So why don't you introduce yourself, how you became a paleoanthropologist, a little bit about your background, and then we can get into some questions I have for you about your fascinating book that is just fascinating. So take it away, Miki.
Okay, I got fascinated with hunter-gatherers life when I was in university, age about 21 or so. And I found that a lot of phenomena that I find, and especially difference between me and my wife, can be explained by if I assume that we have the genes and the way of behavior that is really has evolved for a long time in a completely different environment than we are in today. For instance, the better navigation skills that I had and the better finding skills that my wife had, I could open the fridge like most men do and couldn't find anything, and my wife would immediately find it. So things like that. So I enjoyed reading about hunter-gatherers, but I studied economy, and so I went to a commercial career, which I left at 52, because I had enough of the work life, of the hierarchical situation, and everything is money, and so as soon as I could afford it, I left that life, and I was looking for what to do. So I found out that in Tel Aviv University they teach about hunter-gatherers at the Department of Archaeology, especially prehistory, of course, because and this is where the data is, because this is where these people dig archaeological sites of hunter-gatherers that are 2 million years old and onward. So I went there and I started to just listening. And then about after 2 years, I decided I will go and I'll write the book. This was in Hebrew, the Hebrew version of the book that you mentioned. It took me about a year or two to write it. And then I came back and I gave it as a present to one of the professors. And he said, "Oh, why don't you come to a seminar?" To cut a long story short, we ended up publishing a paper together, and he suggested that I do a PhD. At that time, I discovered while writing the book the paleo diet. And I got very enthusiastic about it, and especially since there was nobody talking about it in Hebrew to Israelis, I thought that I will do that And in order to gain some authority, I would have to getting a PhD was not a bad idea. So I started getting PhD when I really concentrated on reconstructing the diet, the human diet during that the evolution period. So that's what.
That's great. And you were talking about diet, and let's start there. I think that's really a lot of people are there's a lot of misinformation about what they ate, what they didn't eat, and a lot of some archaeologists say that it was mostly a plant based diet from the dental calculus, things like that. I love how in your book it was a really profound sentence you said, Miki. I really liked it. You said at the end, plants aren't looking for you aren't looking for you to eat them. They're not waiting, going, "Hey, Mickey's coming along. I'm excited to be eaten." I mean, I love that sentence. That plants don't want to be eaten, and that's just common sense. And I think a lot of people think that plants are just inert, things growing, but they have nothing. They don't do anything. In reality, the amount of toxins and chemicals that a plant can make are tremendous. They are the nature's biochemists. And I want to kind of go into that a little bit, but really quick before I do that, I think something important for me to understand is that when you eat a hot pepper or an onion or something like that, the onion makes you cry. It's not making you cry for fun. It's making you cry because it's trying to cause you pain. When you eat a hot pepper, same thing with a hot pepper. People love that hot sensation. Well, that hot sensation is the plant trying to kill you. And
Absolutely.
if you just, right? Yeah. So if you just kind of think of this from a logical standpoint, plants don't want to be eaten. And the reason we eat plants back in the day and now is because we can, and they're a fallback food. So why don't you get into some more of that for our friends listening and kind of explain that.
That the plants have many more genes than humans.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Many, like 2, 3, 4 times the number of genes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and most of them are aimed at protection because plants are not moving. They are standing still, and that way they are target for any animal. So, and most animals, if you look at animals that eat plants,
they specialize. Yeah, they only eat a few.
Specialized because they have developed specialized. Like an extreme example is the koala bear, right? A koala bear that eats eucalyptus tree.
Yeah.
And he got all the koala or the panda that eat other I don't remember the name of it, but now anyway they eat one type of because they got adapted to deal with these toxins. Now.
Hold on. Let me say something really quickly before I forget this thought. This is so when you're saying specialization. To summarize, when people eat the rainbow of fruits and vegetables, and you're smart because it's probably incorrect. And I write in my book, just kind of like you allude to in your papers, there was no rainbow. Back in the day for primitive ancestors, they didn't have a rainbow of things to eat. A lot of stuff is been hybridized and all that. There was only a couple of tubers and maybe some wild leaves and stuff like that.
Right,
they could eat. There wasn't this variety that everyone's talking about. And also, what's interesting what you're saying, I only eat a very few limited things too, just for that reason. You want a limited amount of stuff, not a broad, because the broad is the toxins, not the nutrients, quote unquote. Of these plants.
The Indians in the Andes, they eat a lot of tubers, and their genes, they actually have a genetic adaptation to deal with the toxins of the tubers that they eat. And this is adaptation that no other people have.
Wow.
So it's unique. You know, a lot of the domestication of plants and the preparation technologies that we use, like fermenting, yeah, meant to remove the toxins and to remove the fiber. Because another way that the plants protect themselves is that they are very fibrous. Now, I must say, I'm not talking about fruits, because fruits actually want animals to eat them. And this is how they spread their
seeds.
seed. The problem with fruits is that they have much more sugar than they have in nature. But before they got domesticated, so I don't know what would be it could be its own problem. But fruits don't have toxin. But all other
Interesting.
plants that look, I had a terrible ADD. Terrible. I did twice. Actually in 4 different schools. One of the classes. The first classes in high school, I went through 4 schools because I couldn't do my homework. I had such a terrible attention deficit. And when I stopped eating gluten, I wrote half the book with what's the name of I forgot the name of the medicine. Anyway, to help me concentrate, I took Ritalin. I took,
okay, yeah.
During half of the writing of the book, I took Ritalin until I wrote the chapter about the paleo diet, and then I found out how bad gluten can be. I stopped taking gluten, and the rest of the book I wrote without. So a lot of us, we don't know our genetic makeup. We don't know how sensitive we are. Some people are sensitive, more sensitive to different things like milk, etc., etc. The only problem is we don't know. Most people don't do any genetic tests to find out. So the least, the minimum that you can do is go through some preparation, like fermentation, etc.
Let me stop really quickly right there. So to summarize, let me ask you. You were saying a minute ago that fiber is actually a defense mechanism for plants. Can you? I think our friends listening, we're all told that fiber is what you need, and explain in your theory and why you think that fiber is actually a problem. Or not a problem, but why it's a defense mechanism. I've never heard it said that way, Miki.
Look, fiber, the matrix of fiber in the plants actually hold, for instance, the starch between them. So you're not able to take advantage of the starch. It's really like locked into the matrix of the fiber. Now, some animals, most animals that eat plants can actually turn some of the fiber, not all of it, some of the fiber to fats by fermentation. So,
okay, that makes a lot of sense.
They can exploit some of the fiber, but still, they cannot exploit all the energy in the plant.
So
now,
let me ask you, go ahead.
Yeah, humans have a very small, large intestines, colon, and they are not built to utilize more than about 10% to
10%, yeah.
4% of their energy from fiber. So that's another proof that humans actually evolved away from plants. Because if you eat plants and you cannot exploit the fiber, you lose a lot of energy.
No, that
So
makes
animals
sense.
that
Yeah.
eat plant, like our ancestors, yes, like chimpanzees, okay? Chimpanzees eat fruits, but the fruits, nobody here would be able to eat the fruits of the chimpanzees. They are so fibrous that they're just, and they're not that sweet. So they get a lot of their energy from the fiber, and they have large colon, 70% larger than ours.
Now,
So
let me ask you a question. So, um, it brought up an interesting question I have, is that in plants, there's carbohydrates, starches, sugars, but there's also sugar and starches in the fiber. Now, I did not know that. So, if you eat plants, you can get the sugar and the starch from the actual plant itself, but I didn't know there was actually nutrients in the fiber of starch and sugar that obviously I know that we can't break down. There's no, there's bacteria in our gut that can break that down, but there's actually nutrients in the form of starch locked into fiber. I didn't know there was starch in fiber. It's interesting.
yeah. I mean, you can get some of it. It's not like you get nothing, but a lot of it is actually locked in this matrix, the fiber matrix.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You know,
that's go ahead.
the Hadza, when they take some of the tubers, they don't actually eat them. They like chew them and they spit
Yeah.
the fiber out.
Yeah.
What they do in the chewing is actually getting the starch out of the fiber matrix, but they cannot get all of it.
Well, and it's what's interesting about that is that they're kind of simulating what a ruminant animal would do. Ruminants chew and chew and chew and chew for 18 hours a day. And yeah, and
Well,
that's what they
they
do.
chew for a different reason. They chew because they need to prepare the fiber for the bacteria to work
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah.
it
Well, they
should
got four
increase.
chambers in their stomach. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a huge
So they increase
fermentation
the
chamber
surface area of the fiber
of
that
the
way.
fiber. Yeah. And then what's interesting about that is that, when I was writing my book, I thought, well, cows and ruminants, they don't need to do all this for themselves. Why, in what evolutionary aspect would it be important for them to, take grass, all that, and pass it through four chambers in their stomach to create something for themselves? It didn't make sense to me, and I realized the reason they're doing it is for humans and for us to be able to eat a product that is they take grass and turn it into nutrition for humans. And I think that's something that's overlooked a lot of times, is that the reason they're doing this is they're turning inedible grass into edible nutrition for us. And that's what
I
they're
don't know. I
doing.
don't think I don't think cows really think about us.
Well,
They
no, I
just
didn't mean
want
think.
money.
But that's what they're doing from an evolutionary point, is that they've been put
And
on
of
this
course,
planet.
the food
Yeah.
chain is, this is how the whole ecology, function. There's the food chain, so each level in the food chain eat the lower level. Yeah. So
The
yeah.
trophic level. Yeah, yeah. You talked about that in your one of your papers I read. Let's. I know that we're limited on time. Let's dive into a part about when I read in your book the social aspects of these hunter gatherers that I think our listeners, our friends listening, find very interesting, and some things I wrote down here. We spoke quickly in the beginning about this. but let's go into more detail about this. The hunter-gatherers spent only a few hours a day hunting, not the many hours that we assumed, or I assumed, and they did not struggle to obtain food. And I was just under this impression that our ancient ancestors, our hunter-gatherer societies today, they were all just, it was just a huge stressful thing. They're just barely surviving. And you have a whole different opinion on that, which is fascinating. Why don't you go into that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I say, and for this I have like quite a few pieces of evidence, is that we were really carnivores. And when you look at lions, for instance, they don't work hard. Lions lie down for hours.
That's true. You're right.
You see, this is the thing with carnivores. They're much more efficient in obtaining food, and their food is much higher quality. So they don't have to spend so many hours finding it and chewing it and eating it.
Good point. Yeah.
So this is especially social carnivores. They spent a lot of time playing and taking care of the kids and doing other things, but not that much time, getting food and eating it.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that just blows me away, because I was just under the impression that they were just struggling all the time. And you also,
there was a film, a video film that I can't find anymore, showing a TV crew that got into an island, Indian island, the Andaman, the Andaman Islands.
Yeah, I read that in your book.
Ever heard of the Andaman? Okay, the Andaman, there are a few islands there that the government of India doesn't allow people to live there or to go on it. So this crew got permission or didn't, I'm not sure. And he went onto this island and he was filming this small group of people, 20, 30 people. And they were sleeping, and they were sitting, and they were caressing the kids.
Wow.
And you couldn't believe your eyes. How it's like paradise.
Wow. Yeah. Speaking of that, there's this island in the Indian Ocean. What's that name of that island? That's completely cut off from the rest of the world. And if you go there, they will try to kill you. What's the name of that island?
The Sentinel.
Sentinelese. Yeah. I was reading about that for the last year or so. I was just fascinated by this people that, they're completely isolated.
That's another island on the same group of islands.
Yeah. But you can't go there. You can't go there at all.
No, you don't go on this one.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that that I watched some videos on those people, whatever I could watch, because I was so fascinated. And I think about 30 years ago, a camera crew or some people went there, and there's this video of them, and they're coming up from the boat, and they're throwing them coconuts or something, and they were just kind of standing around. But that was like, there's only a few photographs of these people or videos. And then there was this one video I saw, or a picture, where there's a helicopter overhead. I don't know if you've seen that one. And the Sentinelese warrior guy was like, had a bow and arrow, like trying to shoot at it, because he didn't know what it was. He'd never seen a flying thing. He thought it was a bird. I don't know what he thought, but it's fascinating in that respect, that these people are so primitive. And then we think of them as, they don't have the technology, the phones and the airplanes and the cars, and they're all unhappy. It's a total opposite. And that brings me to my next question, that when I was reading your book, it was very interesting about how, you're saying we need to go back to this more primitive, not primitive way of living, but how do we, how do you incorporate capitalism or and consumer, like you write this in your book, consumerism and capitalism with this more sustainable way of living? Is there a way to do that when technology doesn't really allow it? How is that something that's
The book,
unanswered questions?
yeah, the book is really a personal book. I'm not solving the problems of society at all. I don't pretend to be able to. The only shtick that I have is that if you live as close as possible to what the evolution instilled in your genes, you will have a happier life. So, what I advocate is to try to imitate as far as you can the life of the hunter-gatherers. So, first of all, learn about them. Learn about how they live, like you did now when you found out that they don't work like crazy 20, 12 hours a day. Uh, Rest a lot if you can. Build yourself a community. Uh, these people were not alone for a minute. Hunter-gatherers are not alone only for a short time when they go hunting alone, especially if it's small animals. And these animals, they escape, so they don't want too many people around them.
Yeah, they're all together. Yeah, all
Physically, they never sleep alone. They never sit alone. They are always together. So
wow.
that it's a little different. It's a little now they grow and they live all their life in a group that they know all their lives and know them all their lives. So the level of trust in the group is maximum. The level of authenticity. You can't play a role that you don't that you don't have. You can't pretend to be somebody else, or to have other characteristics that you don't have. So you are completely authentic. If you are weak in something, everybody knows that, and everybody will help you because that's for the good of the group. So try to create a community of people that you can trust.
Yeah, that's great.
And
That's great. Yeah.
sometimes I say, and I know it for myself, sometimes it's boring to meet the same people all the time. But there is a great value in it. Great value in being and sort of developing the trust with other people. Now that I'm growing old, I can tell you the most important. My daughter lives in Canada, but my friends live here in Israel. Israel is not exactly, the quietest place for to spend your retirement right now. But I prefer to stay here because I have so many friends that they help me, I help them. Uh, I'm not moving. That's
Yeah.
the
No,
only reason I'm not moving, because of the friends, because of the community that I was fortunate enough to cultivate.
yeah,
So
that's super important. Yeah, that's super important. And I think um, you're mentioning the community and the friends and the family. We've all got to, start to work together. I think that to go back to this primitive way of living, and meaning just the kind of the concepts and the values that live by, the friendships and the community and the eating real food, getting sunlight, connecting to the earth, all these things we can do, and these are things that are going to improve our health and improve everything, I believe. When we improve the health of the population, there'll be less, uh, you know, less violence, I think, less all these things, just because when people are healthy in the community, I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's just, let's go back to we've gone so far off the rails in society, and especially Western society. We need to get back on track and
Yeah.
start doing these things that we've lost touch with, so to speak.
Absolutely. Look, mental pressure is as damaging to your health as eating the wrong food. Uh, you're so much time in the fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
So alienation and loneliness are a major source of pressure. Another thing that I would say is try to be with your equals. If you're not rich, don't get rich friends. It's just, you won't feel good. Maybe you think that, it's nice to be around rich people. Maybe some money drop of you, or some you get invited to an island and they have fun. But really, I learned from experience too. I don't feel comfortable around people that are very rich. And I used to have some friends that were really, like, God knows, hundreds of times more richer than I am. I don't fight with them. But I don't cultivate friendship with them. I
Yeah.
don't feel good about it.
Yeah.
So try to be, yeah.
Well, yeah. So speaking of that too, is find the people that you can connect with, and that are, may say your equals, but that you feel comfortable around. Also, I want to say this too, is that you need to find your purpose in life, and you got to look for it. And for me, I used to own a car wash. I know a car wash for 30 years, but I started studying health about 10 years ago. When my sister got diagnosed with cancer, my mom, same thing. They both passed away. My real mom died of cancer. My sister died. My best friend's dad. And so all these people. And so, so I thought, this is not good. And so I just dug into the research, read hundreds and hundreds of articles, and wrote this book on health as well. And, but I think a lot of people don't have a purpose. And you got to find your purpose, Miki, like you're saying, and that will bring you some sense of satisfaction, contentment, and happiness to find, why are you here on this planet? Not to go, work 12 hours a day for somebody that you don't like and blah, blah, blah. It's just really, you got to search for that. And for our friends listening, really take that in, do some soul searching and really think about what you want to do with your life, what makes you happy. And, is it cooking? Is it reading? Is it, being a pilot? Whatever it is. But really think about that. Yeah.
90% of the purpose that people find is in helping other people.
Yeah.
And that is very typical, because in a group like hunter-gatherers, the survival of the group depends on the people wanting to help each other. So we are crazy compared to other animals. Okay, if you compare humans to other animals, we are the most social, almost the most social animal, and the most altruistic animal that exists. So, most of the, and I have friends, of course. My friends started retiring a few years ago, one after the other. And I used to tell them, find something that you can help other people with, and that will give you purpose. That's the easiest purpose. But another thing is that you have to make a commitment. And because commitment breeds purpose. You have to be committed to something, not just sort of look at it. And the more committed you are, the more purpose you will find.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. I really like that. Yeah, the commitment, and helping people, for sure. And that's, you don't, your satisfaction does not come from the nice house you have or the Rolls Royce you have or whatever it might be. Those are short-term fleeting things, because then you want a bigger car, a bigger house, the whole thing about consumerism. And when you help somebody in some aspect, that is that's the key to life, I'd say. Helping people is really the goal for people to do. And I think that's really, really important. You said that. One thing I want to mention here too. This is kind of going into another back on the health topic really quickly, and then I know you got to go. But you said that about in the diet part, that why will evolution cause fat to flow for long periods of time during the day in our arteries if it causes harm? That's the exact sentence you wrote in your book. I love it, man, because it really makes you think. And a lot of people just believe what they hear, and they don't really use critical thinking skills. And yeah, to that point, is why would that happen if this substance was so bad, and that you said at rest, the body mitochondria uses that as a main source. So it doesn't even make sense logically. If you want to touch on that really quick for our friends listening, because it's super important.
Look, the whole energy system of the body revolves about sugar and fat. Now, what happens when we eat? Of course, we eat, let's say, 3 times a day, but we consume it over 24 hours. So we have to store part of it for the consumption during later in the day. And we store it as either sugar in the form of glucagon or fat. And then during the day, when we don't eat, the body calls on the fat that we stored earlier, of course, also on the sugar, but also on the fat. And the fat flow, now the fat is stored in the fat cells. And then it goes through the blood to all the other cells. So fat, your whole life depends on fat flowing on your veins and in your arteries, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, in LDL particles.
And by the way, we are talking about mostly saturated fat.
Yeah, that's fat.
So,
yeah.
So how could saturated fat be bad for you? For God's sake.
Well, and also it's interesting because when I read an article, and it said that when the liver makes fat from sugar to store it, I believe that it's palmitic acid is one of the fats that's made, which is saturated. So
Right.
why would eating? So you're telling me if I ate a burger or meat or eggs or cheese, if that's all saturated fat, what's the difference between that saturated fat and the palmitic acid that the liver's making? Nothing. So this whole argument, the whole argument falls apart. And so anyway, yeah, I think it's just, this is opening people's eyes. And, I want to thank you so much. I know you got to go here in a minute. I want to thank you so much for your time, Miki. I've learned a lot. And why don't you tell people, our friends listening, how they can find you on the web and your book and stuff like that before we go?
Okay, I have a blog. First of all, the book, Live Paleo Style, is on Amazon.
Fantastic book, by the way. Yeah.
If you look Miki Ben-Dor or the name of the book, you find it. And then I have a blog called paleostyle.com in the site. And that's about it. I'm quite active on X or Twitter. I used to be more active. I maybe become more active again. Right now, I'm writing a book about the theory of human evolution that I developed.
Wow.
And wrote papers about. So I'm collecting all the paper, and I'm writing a book. I have to put it in a book because it's quite comprehensive and you can't do it in one paper. So that's what
Wow.
I'm doing now. So I'm not spending that much time on Twitter, but I may return.
Nice. Well, once again, Miki, it's been a pleasure and an honor to speak with you. When we spoke, a couple of years ago when I was writing my book,
Right.
I learned so much from you, and I'm just really honored to have you on my podcast because you are just,
Thank you. It was a
yeah,
pleasure. Thank you.
yeah, the knowledge you have is just incredible, and hopefully it's going to help a lot of people kind of who are listening. And once again, I thank all our friends listening because I know they have a lot of choices. Just give you some ideas about different things, and to just start conversations on different things. And so, once again, thank you so much, Miki, for your time.
Well,
Really
you're welcome.
appreciate it. And thanks,
Thank
everybody. This is the Ultimate Health Model Podcast. Thank you so much.